to the broadcast. I'm Sean, your host, and the website is scriptureandprophecy.com. Today is Tuesday, June 5th, 2018, and today we are resuming our study in the book of Exodus, and we're going to be reading chapters 21 and 22, and what we're dealing with is more law-given. If you remember chapter 20, that's when God did this big display on the mount, and the people were freaking out, and they were telling Moses, you go talk to God and we'll just talk to you, because they were just terrified at the power of the presence of God. And the 10 Commandments were given, and now we're going to be given some other instruction, and that's basically what these next two chapters are, is just more instruction on how to on how to deal with one another. If someone were to wrong you, how to handle if you have servants. The King James Bible might refer to them as slaves. Laws about restitution, those type of deals. Laws about social justice. How is that? How are those things to be handled? That's what these next two chapters are dealing with. And we got a lot of verses to get through, so without further delay, I'm just going to jump right in, and we can start discussing what's written. So let's go to chapter 21, verse 1, King James Bible. Now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. If thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. Now, one thing that's important to understand is this is not referring to like slavery as the way people think of slavery. This situation would be, maybe you're down and out, you're not making enough money, you can't provide for your family. You could submit yourself to a master to work for them, and then they would provide for you and give you a wage, and you'd live within their household or whatever. This isn't like you were chained up in chains and somebody came by and made a purchase, and it's not that type of situation. In many cases, this was somebody volunteering. It's kind of like what we think of employment these days, where you submit yourself to an employer, they pay you, etc., etc. Verse 4, if his master had given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door, or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. And if a man sell his daughter to be a maidservant, she shall not go out as the men servants do. If she please not her master, who hath betrothed her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed. To sell her unto a strange nation he shall have no power, seeing he hath dealt deceitfully with her. In other words, if he doesn't want the maidservant anymore, he has to give her the opportunity to be redeemed by somebody. He can't just sell her to a foreign nation. Verse 9, and if he have betrothed her unto his son, he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters. If he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish. And if he do not these things three unto her, then shall she go out free without money. Verse 12, he that smiteth a man so that he die shall surely be put to death. And if a man lie not in wait, but God deliver him into his hand, then I will appoint thee a place whither he shall flee. Alright, so what we have taking place here is if you strike somebody and they die, you are to be put to death. It's a capital punishment for murder. But if somebody dies, but it's an accident, There's this idea or law where the person can flee to another place instead of being killed. It's kind of strange, but that's the way it worked. If it was, not like murder, but just total mistake type thing. Verse 14, but if a man come presumptuously upon his neighbor to slay him with guile, thou shalt take him from mine altar, that he may die. And he that smiteth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. And he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. This is an issue we have going on in the United States of America that doesn't get much talk, but we have young girls being picked up off the street and then sold into sex slavery. That type of thing, according to God's word, requires the death penalty. You steal somebody, you kidnap somebody and sell them, you're to be put to death. Verse 17, and he that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. There's a big emphasis in God's word and in God's law about your attitude and the way you act towards your parents. The Bible God even goes as far as to promise in probably half a dozen to a dozen places that if you honor your parents and your mother and your father, you honor your parents, that you'll be given a long life. So God sees that as extremely important to honor your parents. So much so that if you curse your parents, you're to be put to death. Verse 18, and if a man strive together, and one smite another with a stone, or his fist, and he die not, but keepeth his bed, if he rise again and walk abroad upon his staff, then shall he that smote him be quiet. Only he shall pay for the loss of his time, and shall cause him to be thoroughly healed. So if you get in a fight with somebody, and you beat them up, and they recover, you don't get the death penalty, but you're responsible for all the loss that they've suffered. The loss of wages, all of that. Medical care, you're responsible for that. Verse 20. If a man smite his servant or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Notwithstanding, if he continue a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his money. If men strive and hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit depart from her, and yet no mischief follow, he shall be surely punished, according as the woman's husband will lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. So there's certain circumstances where you don't receive the death penalty, but you go before the judges and they decide what type of punishment you are to receive. And if any mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and hand for a hand, foot for a foot, burning for a burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. So, what the scriptures are saying here is, whatever you cause upon somebody else, that is to be brought upon you. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, burning for a burning. This is the way it's supposed to work. And of course, this is to be administered by judges. It's not like, I go up and I gouge your eye out, that you have the right to then turn around and gouge my eye out. No, you'd go before the judges, and the judges would make this decision. If you remember, Jesus told us how we are to act with one another. He said, if you've heard it said, an eye for an eye, but I tell you, turn the other cheek, right? That's how we are to treat our brethren. The judges, the government, is supposed to deal with people, deal with the crimes and things in this manner. You kill somebody, you're to be killed. And then there's certain things that require the death penalty, like we were just talking about. And so that's how that's to be dealt with. All right. Verse 26, and if a man smite the eye of his servant, or the eye of his maid, that it perish, he shall let him go free for his eye's sake. And if he smite out his maidservant's tooth, or his manservant's tooth, or his maidservant's tooth, he shall let him go free for his tooth's sake. And if an ox gore a man or a woman, that they die, then the ox shall surely be stoned, and his flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be quiet. But if the ox were wont to push with his horn in times past, and it hath been testified to his owner that he hath not kept him in, but that he hath killed a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and his owner the owner also shall be put to death. So what it's talking about here is, if you have an ox and it kills someone, it's to be put to death. It's not to be eaten or anything like that. And to take it a step further, if you have an animal, it's got a history of attacking people, it's been brought to your attention, you've done nothing about it, then one day your ox injure or kills somebody else, kills someone, even though you've been warned, you did nothing about it. The ox kills someone. Not only is the ox put to death, but you yourself will also be put to death because, you've been told, you were aware that this was eventually going to happen and you did nothing about it. So you're just as guilty as the animal. Let's see, where were we? If there be laid on him a sum of money, then he shall give for the ransom for his life whatsoever is laid upon him. Whether he have gored a son or have gored a daughter, according to his judgment shall it be done unto him. If the ox shall push a manservant or a maidservant, he shall give unto their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. And if a man shall open a pit, or if a man shall dig a pit, and not cover it, and an ox or an ass fall therein, the owner of the pit shall make it good, and give money unto the owner of them, and the dead beast shall be his. And if one man's ox hurts another, that he die, then they shall sell the live ox, and divide the money for it. And the dead ox also they shall divide. Or if it be known that the ox hath used to push in times past, and its owner hath not kept him in, he shall surely pay ox for ox, and the dead shall be his own. And that would be the end of chapter 21. And before we start chapter 22, I just want to say, to me, all these laws that we just read just seem like common sense. Like I wouldn't need to read this in the Bible to believe that this would be the right way to handle things. Like this is just what's right. It's just painfully obvious. You dig a hole and somebody's ox falls in it and dies, you make it right. I mean, it's not hard to understand. You get, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You hurt somebody, you get hurt. You murder somebody, you get put to death. It's not groundbreaking, it's common sense. And, I think God has written this on our hearts, and this just makes sense. And as a matter of fact, the scriptures even say that, in the new covenant, that God would write the law in our hearts. So this is just obvious stuff. It's not hard. The problem is now we live in a culture, in a society, in a world where the world completely thinks the opposite. It does not see righteous judgment. In most cases, it rules in the opposite of that. But this, the stuff we're reading here, like I said, I don't know about you guys, but it just seems like common sense. Of course, that's the way it should be. Let's go ahead and finish up, and let's read chapter 22. This is going to be laws and judgments, I believe, based on how to handle property. More like social justice stuff. All right, let's continue on. Verse 1, chapter 22. If a man steal an ox or a sheep, and kill it or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox, and 4 sheep for a sheep. If a thief be found breaking up, and be smitten that he die, there shall be no blood shed for him. I believe the book of Leviticus talks about this too, that if, we wonder what happens if somebody, breaks into your house or something like that, and then you are forced to defend yourself. God does not see that as murder, as you can clearly see here, verse 2. If a thief be found breaking up, and be smitten that he die, there shall no blood be shed for him. In other words, That's it. He broke in, and when there's no blood to be shed on his account. If a thief is found and then he gets killed, there should be no bloodshed for him. Murder is not, self-defense is not murder. Murder is when, I hate that guy, and then you lash out and you attack him. Or, I'm going to get back at this person, and you lash out and you attack him. That's murder. This would be acceptable according to God's law. Defending yourself against a thief, as an example. Verse 3. If the sun be risen upon him, there shall be no bloodshed for him, for he should make full restitution. If he hath nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the theft be certainly found in his hand alive, whether it be an ox or an ass or a sheep, he shall restore double. So if somebody gets caught stealing, whatever they stole, they owe double back to the person they stole it from. If these kind of laws were enforced, people would think twice about what they're doing, wouldn't they? Verse 5. If a man shall cause a field or a vineyard to be eaten, he shall be put in, and shall put in his beast, and shall feed in another man's field. Of the beast of his own field, and of the beast of his own vineyard, he shall make restitution. If fire break out and catch in thorns, so that the stacks of corn or standing corn or a field be consumed therewith, he that kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. If a man shall deliver unto his neighbor money or stuff to keep, and it be stolen out of the man's house, if the thief be found, let him pay double. If the thief be not found, then the master of the house shall be brought unto the judges to see whether he have put in his hands unto his neighbor's goods. So in other words, if you're responsible for protecting whatever it is, and it gets stolen under your care, and they can't find the thief, then you're going to be brought before the judges to see whether or not there was negligence there. And if there's negligence, then you're going to have to be responsible for that. Imagine that, a world where we have to take responsibility for our own actions. Wouldn't that be amazing? Verse 9, for all manner of trespasses, whether it be of ox, for ass, for sheep, for raiment, or for any manner of lost things, which another challengeth to be his, the cause of both parties shall come before the judges, and whom the judges shall condemn, he shall pay double unto his neighbor. If a man deliver unto his neighbor an ass, or an ox, or a sheep, or any beast, to keep, and it die, or be hurt, or driven away, no man seeing it, then shall an oath of the Lord be between them both, and he hath not put his hands unto his neighbor's goods, and the owner of it shall accept thereof, and shall not make it good. And if it be stolen from him, he shall make restitution unto the owner thereof. And if it be torn in pieces, then let him bring it for a witness, and he shall not make good that which was torn. And if a man borrow aught of his neighbor, and it be hurt or die, then the owner thereof being not with it, he shall surely make it good. Alright, so if you borrow something from your neighbor, hey, I need to use your tiller, and you till up your garden and then you break it, you're responsible for that, and you're to make it right. But if the owner thereof be with it, he shall not make it good, for it be an hired thing, and it came for his hire. Verse 16. If a man entice a maid that is not betrothed, and he lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. Alright, so this is dealing with kind of fornication. If you entice a young woman, you convince her to get in bed with you, now guess what? You're required by law to make her your wife. Now, that would make people think twice about who they get in bed with, wouldn't it? Because by law, you're now getting married. If a man entices a maid that is not betrothed, in other words, she's not engaged to someone else, and he lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. If her father utterly refuse to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins. So if you convince some young girl to get in bed with you, and then the father says, no way, I'm giving my daughter to you as a wife, then instead of marrying her, you now have to pay whatever the fee would be according to the judges. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, verse 18, and then it moves on to something else. Anybody caught doing witchcraft, doing evil witchcraft. Sorcery and witchcraft are a real thing, and it brings demonic presence and all kinds of darkness into your household, into your communities. It's extremely dangerous, and that's why God warns us against it. It's a real thing. And I did a podcast with Russ Dizdar a long time ago, a couple years ago. I think I'm going to try to rebroadcast that in the next couple days, so keep an eye out for that. But it kind of talks about that spiritual realm, about the reality of these things, that it really does exist. And it's saying here, anybody who's, if you do not suffer a witch to live, you find one, they're practicing witchcraft, they're not to live according to the scriptures. Whosoever lieth with a beast shall surely be put to death. Again, all of this judgment is to be issued by the judges. It's not up to you to go, oh, there's a witch, grab her, burn her. None of that kind of stuff. This is for the government to do. This is how the judges are supposed to judge the people. Bestiality, verse 19. Whosoever lieth with a beast shall surely be put to death. He that sacrifice unto any god, save unto the Lord only, he shall be utterly destroyed. Thou shalt neither vex a stranger nor oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. In other words, you're not supposed to mistreat somebody who's from somewhere else. Very clear. Verse 22, ye shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If thou afflict them in any wise, and they cry at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children shall be fatherless. So God takes this very seriously, how you treat the widow, how you treat the fatherless. Verse 25, if thou lend money to any of my people that is poor by thee, thou shalt not be to him as a usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury. In other words, if you got a brother and sister in Christ, and they're down and out, and they need to borrow money to get by, you're not allowed to charge them interest. That's not the way we treat our fellow brethren. Verse 26, if thou at all take thy neighbor's raiment to pledge, thou shalt deliver it unto him, by that sun goeth down. For that is the covering only. It is his raiment for his skin, whether shall he sleep? And it shall come to pass when he crieth unto me, and I will hear, for I am gracious. Thou shalt not revile the gods, nor curse the rulers of thy people. Thou shalt not delay to offer the first of ripe fruits, and of any liquors the firstborn of thy son shalt thou give unto me. Likewise shalt thou do with thy oxen and with thy sheep. 7 days it shall be with his dam. On the 8th day thou shalt give it to me. And ye shall be holy men unto me. Neither shall you eat any flesh that is torn of beasts in the field. Ye shall cast it to the dogs. And that's the end of chapter 22. And we're going to stop there. Obviously there's more to go. But we're running out of time. And, again, this all seems like common sense to me, and I'm sure it sounds like common sense to you. Like, yeah, you make these things right. It's very obvious how you should treat one another. This is how the world should be judged. And it's just unfortunate that the world isn't judged more like this. You mistreat somebody, you get mistreated. It's plain and simple. You sleep with a young virgin, guess what? She's now going to be your wife. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's the way it should be. But we know we live in a backwards, in an upside down world, but the day is coming, and hopefully soon, when Messiah will rule the world forever, and righteous judgment will finally go forth. Well, that's the podcast for this morning, and I hope that you were blessed by it. I apologize that I wasn't able to get these Bible studies out last week, but we're going to get them out this week. On the next podcast episode, we're going to deal with the last chapter of the book of Matthew and finish up that book. Still waiting and looking for recommendations for our next New Testament study. So let me know if you have a thought on where you'd like to go with that. You can leave a comment on Facebook, on the website, something along those lines, and get with me on that. And then, like I said, I'm going to try to find that podcast I did with Russ Dizdar. I think you guys might find it interesting, and I'll try to get that re-uploaded this week as well. Well, that's all I got for you this morning. Peace and grace be with all of you, and until next time, God bless.